Good evening, folks, and welcome to this RAAus live stream event. I'm Matthew Bouttell, CEO of RAAus, and with me tonight is Jill Bailey, our Head of Flight Operations. G'day, Jill. And Jared Smith, who's our Head of Airworthiness and Maintenance. So g'day to you, Jared, as well. G'day. Special call out for Marette in the background, one of our comms advisors with RAAus. She's driving the system for us tonight, so thank you to Marette for doing that for us. Coming to you tonight from a very chilly Canberra. It's pretty cold outside. We've got some snow up on the hills, so good news for the snow season starting this weekend, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to that. But more importantly, looking forward to some clear skies for some nice flying weather. First of all, I just want to apologise that I've scheduled tonight to coincide with the State of Origin. Being a huge rugby league supporter myself, you would have thought that I'd have known that when we scheduled it, but that wasn't to be. We'd already promoted the live stream, so we decided, well, not the whole country cares about State of Origin, only New South Wales and Queensland, so we'll go ahead with it anyway, but we'll certainly be doing our best to finish before kickoff. And I've certainly, we've had a discussion about that with the team beforehand too, so I can watch the Blues beat Queensland. Tonight, a bit of housekeeping first. There's an opportunity to ask some questions. We'll answer some of those as we go along, and those questions we don't get to tonight, we can certainly answer them after the fact, either on our FAQ or reaching out to our members directly. And also tonight's live stream will be recorded and popped up onto our Recreational Aviation Australia YouTube channel, and for people to watch after the event, should we drag on into kickoff time for the State of Origin, which I will aim not to do. So tonight we've got a few things on the agenda, or two main things on the agenda. First is just an organisational update, which I thought I'd share with you, just what's been happening with RAAus over the past few months, and then delve into a bit more technical information for our members regarding the maximum takeoff weight increase up to 760 kilos, which we are calling Group G. And certainly Jared and Jill will share with you what we've got planned for that when it comes to our application to CASA, and then of course how we will apply that and how our members will take advantage of that into the future. So some pretty lots of information to be shared tonight. From an organisational update perspective, I'll kick that off. And the first thing I'd like to share is that some of you would recall back in March, we announced the flood assistance program for our members, and that was approved by the board. We extended the eligibility date for that, or the application date for that, and that remains open until the end of June for those members affected by the floods. And obviously we still hear stories of people still trying to work through, what this means for them and their aircraft and aviation for them going forward. So RAAus always stands with you to support you, but this particular program will end at the end of June. Next one off the rank for me is around board elections. So in the e-news sent out today, and actually last week, we announced that the nomination for board directors is opening as of today, actually. So we've got 3 board positions becoming vacant that would take up their post at the end of this year at the AGM in November. So I'd certainly encourage any of our members who have an interest in organisational governance and the like to take a look at the nomination pack, which has been approved by the board. That's on our members portal under the governance tab. Thanks, Marette, for putting that up there. So take a good read of that. There's some key dates in there. Most importantly is the application date for becoming for nominating. I'm just looking for the date here, which I did put down, and I think it was the 8th of July, I think. But the nomination pack spells out all the key dates. But it's pretty important that you do meet all those key dates in that, so that we can get the process up and running. An unfortunate one, which I announced last week in the e-news also, was that fees are going up for membership. Thankfully, our board has approved only a 3.5% increase in our in our fees for this for the next financial year. And I think the important thing is there, inflation sitting above 5%. We're all feeling it at the moment with the cost of everything. So the board's taken the line that, well, let's not, impose the entire cost, increase that we're experiencing onto our members, and incur a small deficit for the financial year, which we're able to do because we're in a pretty good financial position. What this looks like is that our membership fee goes up by $10 from $275 to $285 per year. But of course, we've still got our 2 and 3 year memberships available as well. So if you're keen to save $5 year on year on those memberships, but also insulate yourself against future price increases in those 2 years, I'd certainly encourage you to take up those offers there. So our fees will increase, and that'll start from the 1st of July. Next one off the ranks is, we've all seen lots and lots of media on this of late around the election and that we have a new government. And what that means for us is that we are welcoming a new minister in charge of the aviation portfolio in the Australian government. The Honourable Catherine King, MP, is replacing, or has replaced, the Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce, or the former Deputy Prime Minister, I should say, Barnaby Joyce, as the Minister responsible for infrastructure, transport, regional development and local government. Bit of a mouthful, but that's where the aviation portfolio sits. And, this is pretty important for our members because it's certainly the top of the tree when it comes to advocacy for our members. So we take advocacy pretty seriously for RAAus to represent our members and the industry more broadly. And we've worked with key decision makers for many years to advance our privileges, on things like to ensure a proportionate approach to regulation is applied by government and their agencies. So, that's a really important thing for us, is to be respectful in the way that we advocate, that we play the issue and not the person, and we advocate with tenacity. And what that means is, if it doesn't work one way, we'll try it another way, and so on and so forth, and until we're heard and given a fair hearing to try and, progress the initiatives of our organisation and for our members. So you'll see on our website under the latest news, we've published the letter that the chairman, Michael Monk, and myself have written to Minister King, and I've outlined a few things in that letter for her, just to get her to understand a little bit about RAAus, who we are, the size and breadth of our organisation, and the skill sets that we bring to the table as well. So there's the link to that there. So thanks, Moret. One of the key areas we have been advocating on is around airports, and I certainly have lots of emails and phone calls throughout the year from members regarding particularly airport charges. And one of the most recent ones, of course, is Moorabbin Airport. Moorabbin Airport saw fit to charge non-VH aircraft owners $545 per day to access that airport, when they're only charging aircraft owners of VH registered aircraft, I think $35 for an aircraft less than 7,000 kilos. So I had actually reached out to Moorabbin a number of times last year, and didn't have much luck. But as luck would have it, one of our members, and whose name I don't actually have on me at the moment, but I do apologise, you'll know who he is. One of our members got in contact with our chair, Michael Monk, and they together contacted the local council, or were engaging with the local council as recently as last week, to garner their support to speak with Moorabbin Airport. And from what I'm informed is that Moorabbin Airport have kindly reduced that or removed that excessive fee for our members going forward, which is a pretty good outcome. And we want to thank Moorabbin Airport for doing that. Of course, we can look backwards and be angry about a $545 charge, but there's no point in that. Let's look forward and look forward to enjoying their facilities and growing an aviation mecca down there at Moorabbin Airport. So some pretty good advocacy that's taken place there. Another one is, which I get lots of questions about, and I was up in Queensland a couple of weeks ago where I got a lot of questions about, is ADSB, and particularly the government rebate on ADSB. which is about to open. I think it opens later this month, but thankfully it's backdated until back to the 20th of December last year for anyone who has installed eligible equipment in their aircraft, to seek up to 50% or $5,000, whichever's less, funding from the government to contribute towards the fitment of the ADS-B. I'm just seeing some other questions come through there. I just saw that one there about Moorabbin, Stephen. So I can't answer the question there, but certainly I'm sure Moorabbin Airport would understand why they were charging that in the first place. Back to ADS-B, however, one of the really cool things about this is that the government's giving us an opportunity to co-fund equipment to fit in our aircraft. And in my 30 years of being in this industry, I've not seen that before. And so of course you've got to spend money to save money, so it's not for everyone. I understand that, but I'd certainly encourage our members to take a good look at whether this this opportunity, because I think it's only for about 2 years or 18 months this rebate will be open for, and take a good look at the program to see if it works for you. Because at the end of the day, as drones and unmanned aircraft become more and more prevalent in our I'm seeing Dan's comments down there too. As drones become more prevalent in our airspace, effectively they're going to have to be autonomously separated from aircraft, and the way they're going to do that, certainly at this stage, is technology such as ADS-B. So at some stage, I would hazard a guess and say that ADS-B will be required for all of us at some stage. But at this stage, there's no mandates or anything like that for RAAus members or for day VFR operations. Importantly, and I've got a unit here, which is a Sky Echo device. If you aren't keen to go and spend a whole bunch of money and install ADS-B, a new transponder and nav and all that cool stuff in your aircraft, you can actually take up the offer and simply buy an EC device, which is a non-certified ADS-B piece of equipment, which gives you ADS-B in and out. So certainly enhances situational awareness in Class G airspace. I've trialed this one here. Again, it's not very big, and I've got to say it's a really nice piece of kit, and certainly gave me a bit more understanding about what was going on around me when I was flying. So I'm going to be taking it for a fly next week as well to give it another test run. So I'm looking forward to that. Very quickly on the next two items, CASA has put out a couple of consultations. You may have seen one on aviation medicine, or the first one on aviation medicine. Look, RAAus has been enjoying self-declared medicals for forever and a day, and that's a great thing. CASA wants to leverage off our experience, so they invited myself into the Part 67 technical working group, and I've attended a few meetings on that. Look, the aim of the working group was to look at some specific topics, one of those being self-declared medicals for VH pilots, and of course the TWG gave advice back to CASA on that. Interestingly, the consultation that is now open seeks to explore the issues that the TWG looked at, but also looks more broadly at aviation medical. And one of the areas that I suppose is a little bit interesting, I'll say, is that assurances were given to me by the PMO at CASA, or the principal medical officer, that they certainly wouldn't be touching the medical system for the CASA, so the approved sport organisations. And however, there is a question in this consultation regarding whether the instructor medical standards for ASAOs are appropriate. Of course, we believe that they are, and there's certainly been no data that supports that otherwise either, and nor have CASA provided that. We'll obviously, defend that vigorously. I don't expect any change, but who knows? But I'd certainly encourage all of our members to get on, have a look at that consultation, and see whether you think you can contribute to that discussion. The next one is Part 43, maintenance standards for private and aerial work aircraft. I won't talk too much about it because Jared will touch on this shortly with our Group G discussion. And but it basically looks to relax some of the maintenance standards for private and aerial work aircraft, introduce a system which is very similar to what already happens in the US with managing those lower risk operations such as private and aerial work operators. And but what it's not is not a replication of what RAAus has today. So it's certainly not the be all and end all, and and it's not to the degree of flexibility that we have today in our system. But certainly there are some good benefits, I think, for certain sections in industry, including RAAus members, for the use for maintaining Group G aircraft. So that's it for me. I did go longer than I said I was going to, and I noticed Jill was smiling at me. But and I can see too, we've also got a number of questions on there, and I'll take a look at them and maybe jump in a little bit later and answer some of those. But I might hand over to Jared now, and go the Blues tonight, everyone.
All right, thanks, Matt. I might just recap on what a Group G aircraft is, what a CO 9555 defines a lightweight aeroplane as. I'll take you just read from that. There's a lightweight aeroplane means an aeroplane other than a light sport aircraft. There's a common question we get is whether a light sport aircraft maximum takeoff weight can be increased, and as per this definition, no, it will not. So lightweight aeroplane means an aeroplane other than a light sport aircraft. A, that is a single place or two place aeroplane, and B, that has a single engine and a single propeller, and C, that has a stall speed not exceeding 45 knots, which, as we all know, we communicated by e-news recently, that will be removed, other than for aircraft that are certified with that standard. And D, that has a maximum takeoff weight, if not equipped to operate on water, greater than 600 kgs, but not exceeding 760 kgs. And this is also a very important item, because if the type certificate for a manufactured aircraft has a maximum takeoff weight of 761 kgs, then it will not be registrable by RAAus. And then lastly, E, for which a certificate of airworthiness is in force. And I'll touch more on that further this evening. Now, in order to be able to register lightweight aircraft, we've had to update the technical manual. The current body of the manual doesn't require a whole lot of amendments. They're mainly minor, but we have included a entirely new section 15, which is entirely for lightweight airplanes. But in the body of the current manual, one of the amendments incorporates the new prefixes. Now, as we don't have enough numbers going around, we have proposed two more. And I note that even the CASA registrars proposed numerals in their registrations now as well. But last stream, when we were talking on this topic, we requested members to put forward their thoughts on some prefixes. And the overwhelming response was for 3.4 for manufactured aircraft and 2.9 for amateur built. And that's the proposed prefixes that we will submit to CASA. And I think that's a good outcome, because it reflects our current manufactured and amateur builds. Manufactured 2.4 to 3.4 for Group G, and our current 19 to 2.9. And if our current registered aircraft need to change category, it's not a big deal to change one prefix, one digit on their aircraft. And the main addition to the technical manual will be a new section 15, that will deal directly with lightweight airplanes. And we proposed a simple one-form application for all applications. So whether it's experimental, manufactured, currently RAAus registered, or imported from overseas, it doesn't matter. It'll just be one form, trying to keep it as simple as possible. Furthermore, in regards to keeping it simple, one key difference for the registration of a lightweight airplane whether it's experimental or certified, is the requirement for a certificate of airworthiness. Now, the initial issue of a airworthiness certificate is expensive and time-consuming. They do serve a purpose. However, for a VH registered aircraft that has a current C of A and maintenance release, the new C of A is going to be of little value. So therefore, RAAus has been working with CASA to ensure a smooth transition for aircraft owners who choose to register with RAAus. And we currently have an agreement that the intent will not be for the initial issue of a C of A for aircraft that have a current C of A and current maintenance release, rather for a reissue of the document to reflect the change of registration mark, which is a great outcome. Currently, as Matt previously mentioned, there's a lot of change taking place with Part 43, maintenance of aircraft and private and aerial work applications, and our Part 103, which is specifically for sport and recreational aircraft. Part 103 is where all of our rules are going to sit. It will take over from our current CAO series. And as the Part 103 MOS has not been drafted, it creates an opportunity for RAAus to increase the maintenance privileges for aircraft owners and Level 2 maintenance authority holders for Group G airplanes moving forward. And we'll continue to advocate for increased privileges for our members. And it's one point that whilst the current implementation for maintenance privileges is not going to be carried over with our current value proposition for Group A, just want to make the point where RAAus has 170 schools that can't teach in the Cessna 150. And on implementation, they will. So it's an additional privilege without sacrifice to our current operations. And once implemented, it's a benefit that we have and that we'll be able to build upon. And I think with that, we'll pass on to Jill to discuss the operational requirements for Group G airplanes.
Thanks, Jared. That was a great explanation, and I think we answered a couple of the comments there from some of our members about how we're going to identify these aircraft. And we have had questions about why we've produced a new group, because obviously in the CASA world, you can fly an aircraft up to any weight. That's a particular limitation based on whatever license you hold, whatever medical you hold. But there are so many differences beyond just operation of an aircraft, and Jared's just outlined some of them, that it's so much easier initially for us to say, let's just separate these issues potentially and make it a little clearer for our members. So that's the intent. So from an operations point of view, Stephen Limkin, g'day. Shout out to Steve. Yes, the ops manual is one of the documents that we're going to be doing a lot of amendments to. In fact, if I just give a quick little overview from our perspective, members might think, well, this is pretty easy. We're just going to start flying aircraft up to 760 kilos. Why is it taking so long? So there's amendments to the ops manual. Well, actually, we've rewritten the ops manual. And I'd like to hope that when we issue that after it's approved by CASA, that a lot of our members will be able to read it much more easily, because it's going to be set up in sections that will allow you to just simply look at, I'm a pilot certificate holder, I just want to look at this section. I'm an instructor, I need to look at this section. So there's that. There's a syllabus of flight training, which are the differences between current Group A and the new Group G. There's changes to our exposition. There's new forms that are required for the issue of RPCs in Group G. For ratings and approvals in Group G. There's internal processes, so our staff process these properly. There's manual changes, and then there's actually our processes to approve instructors and CFIs and schools so they can deliver training for Group G. So there's actually, it's a massive effort, and I'm sure anyone that's been talking to me recently will know we are working really, really hard, and appreciate the shout out from many of the people that are watching now. Yep, they know how hard we work. We know how hard we work. We're working very hard to make it nice and easy for our members. But the whole point of this really is to say, if you're operating in the Group A world, so 600 kilo max takeoff weight, absolutely nothing changes. And it's really important for people to recognise that the limitation that was removed for lightweight or Group G aircraft for the 45 knot stall has no impact or change in the Group A, B or D world. So for your current 3-axis aircraft and your weight shift microlights, etc. Those limitations remain. It's just the limitation that's been removed from the Group G aircraft. So let's just talk about a bit of scenario stuff, because I think that might actually make life a bit easier for some of our members. Let's talk about a member who flies a Jabiru or a Tecnam, a Sling, a current aircraft that's limited to 600 kilos, and they've gone, you beauty, I want to buy a Cessna 152 and fly that aircraft. So if they have any experience in the CASA world as an RPL, PPL holder, etc., and they've flown those aircraft, it's going to be a simple matter of sending in your qualifications, and we should recognise that. And part of what we're doing in the ops world is introducing or building on the work from previous work that we've done for the general competency rule. So it's a simple process for the pilot to then self-determine or work with an instructor to make sure they're competent to fly that aircraft. If you've never operated an aircraft heavier than 600 kilos, it's not that there's anything magically different about those aircraft, but there are some operational differences. So it'll be a matter of just going to a school that's approved to do Group G training and doing a flight assessment, training as required, and then a flight test for issue of a Group G pilot certificate. So that's if you haven't operated in that world at all, in the CASA world or otherwise. For our instructors, it's the same scenario. If you, and I'm a perfect example of this, I have a PPL, not a CPL, so I can fly an aircraft in the CASA world. That's current. I'm a RAAus senior instructor PE, so therefore I should be able to just simply do an assessment with a PE and be issued a Group G instructor rating, senior instructor rating, CFI approval, whatever the approval is I'm seeking. If you operate in the CASA world with a flight instructor rating, it's a relatively simple exercise to recognise that again. And obviously that flows through to the CFI being approved to train and operate in Group G. So the intent will be to have a certificate on the wall that says Jill's Flight Training School, Group A aircraft, and Jill's Flying School, Group G aircraft, or Group B aircraft, whatever it happens to be. So you will see some new certificates flying around as well, to just clarify that. If you're a school, you already have aircraft and you want to add some Group G aircraft, it will be the same kind of idea. You'll be accredited as a CFI and your school will be accredited to train in those aircraft. So I hope that gives a bit of an understanding for people, and maybe we'll throw over to some questions, because I can see them coming in thick and fast now. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that score as required.
I got one for you, Jill, is just with regards to additional training for pilots. What sort of things are you looking at there in terms of, what are the additional skills for a Group G pilot?
Yeah, there's really, in terms of flying a plane, it's left, right, down, up, more power, less power, it's a plane. But there are some considerations for pilots that might be used to operating something with a really good power to weight ratio, say a Foxbat that can get off in a pretty short run. If you then jump into respectfully quite a mature 152, you might find that takeoff run is double or triple on a hot day. So therefore you need to be able to consider and apply those considerations to operating that aircraft. So weight and balance, performance limitations, and then training on the actual aircraft that you're intending to operate under our type training banner, which we've got a wrap on our website, wrap 2, I think it is, type training, which gives some overview of what we expect, even in the Group A world. If you're operating a Jabiru and you then go to a Sling or a Foxbat, they're different enough that you should do some sort of proficiency training. So it's not going to be onerous. In fact, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much with the ops manual because a lot of it's got to be run past CASA, but we are actually talking about reducing or reviewing a lot of the hour-based limitations and referring it all to competency-based training, which is obvious. If you can demonstrate you're competent, you're good to go.
Yeah, and I think the important thing there that you just touched on is, this needs to be approved by CASA. So our team's been working furiously for, 6 months putting together a revised ops manual and tech manual that outline what we believe is necessary for us to safely administer Group G operations. we've certainly had meetings with CASA to start sharing with them what's in that, because from a process perspective, what will happen is that we will submit our application to CASA to perform a new function under Part 149. Now, that's all a bit of gobbledygook, I know, but what it does is that application will formalise it, our request to CASA to administer that. They will then go and formally review our manuals and our application to determine, number one, whether there's any additional things that they would be seeking, or tick the box and give us that approval to then start the ball or start administering Group G. So there's a little bit of work to go yet. I mean, I think we set ourselves a target of the end of June. So at the end of last year, we set our target to the end of June this year to make that submission. We're going to be pretty close, whether we're on the day handing that form of to CASA or not. There's a little bit of water to go under the bridge yet. But we've got to make sure that we implement change safely as well. And recently we announced that RAAus was the first Part 149 organisation to not have any restrictions on our Part 149 certificate. And it was a little bit of a competition between us and the Australian Parachute Federation, who we've worked very closely with during the development of Part 149. And so it was nice to give my colleague, Richard McCooey, a bit of a dig and say, hey, we beat you. But ultimately, we need to make sure, as APF do, that any change that we implement, we do it safely and we do it methodically, so that we aren't just saying, oh yep, we can do this, CASA, no problem, and then we get the approval and go, oh, we didn't think of that. So there's a bit of work that goes in all of that, and I'd like to call out specifically Jill and Jared for particularly how much work they've done to develop these applications that we'll be putting into CASA very shortly, and it'll be a huge feather in their cap. I know both Jill and Jared and so many of our staff and former staff and board members, for that matter, have worked for so many years to get this privilege up and running, and it'll be a real credit to all of us once we get that up and running. The other question I saw there, I might just jump in, was about CTA. And some of you may have seen the CASA have released a GA roadmap. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Maret. And the GA roadmap actually crystallises what CASA had already told us at the end of last year was, let's do MTO, let's get that over the line, and then let's work on CTA and establish whether that RAAus can manage that safely as well. So I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to give a date, because that would be maybe foolish, but I think soon after MTO we'll be working on that CTA application. And again, I was up in Queensland 2 weeks ago, and that's a big issue for a lot of our Queensland members, given the complexity of the airspace around Brisbane and Redcliffe and the like. And CTA would be a huge benefit up there for many of our members. And personally, I operate out of Canberra, so it'd be a huge thing. I wouldn't have to maintain my PPL anymore, and I'm very much looking forward to doing that. Jill, there's another one there from Linda. You may want to touch on that.
Yeah, thanks, Linda, one of our CFIs. Got a question about whether the syllabus will be different for Group G. So the intent is to recognise the fact that a Group G aircraft and a Group A aircraft are very much the same. So we're going to leverage the existing Group A syllabus and simply produce a Group G syllabus that talks about the specific differences CFIs need to consider. So really it's training as you have done already in the Group A world. And if you add a Group G aircraft to your school, it'll be additional of those elements that we believe need to be particularly focused on when operating slightly heavier aircraft. So relatively painless, Linda. We're trying to be pragmatic about it. But I did see a question earlier from Mills, I'll get it right. Do we need to do a biennial in both Group A and Group G? Sorry, Byron, for that. Look, the intent is, again, not to be difficult about this. If you, under the general competency rule, it'll be in the new ops manual, believe you're proficient, you've done a BFR in a Group A aircraft in the last 2 years, there's nothing to stop you from flying a Group G aircraft if you have that pilot certificate. We don't want to make life difficult. I think that's probably the core of RAAus's approach, is to be pragmatic about these things, and as long as safety is not compromised, no, there's no need to do 2 BFRs.
Yeah. And I've also, there's obviously a few questions there from AOPA, so Ben must have not joined earlier when I spoke about the Part 67 Technical Working Group. And just for those of you who've been seeing a bit of chatter going on there in the comment box, RAAus is absolutely a member of the Technical Working Group for Part 67, as I did mention before, and actually I'm the only non-doctor on that group. Which is interesting, but the makeup of the technical working group is determined by the Aviation Safety Advisory Panel. And as I mentioned earlier, the reason that RAAus is on that technical working group is because CASA wanted to leverage off the work that RAAus has done with self-declared medicals over many years. And I also point out that AOPA's got a representative, got a doctor on the technical working group representing them too. And as Ben would be more than aware, that my role in that technical working group is very much to ensure that the work that the privileges that RAAus has, the learnings that we've had have been shared more broadly across the technical working group, and certainly my position has not been anything other than looking after the RAAus, the sport orgs, but also not trying to create a divide that some people try to do within the industry. I fly a VH registered aircraft. RAAus, the object of RAAus is to grow aviation more, throughout the country, not just about recreational aviation. So any suggestion that RAAus would be doing that is nonsense. And I'm really proud of the work that that we are doing on that technical working group, and working really closely, I might add, with the doctor, and I won't announce his name here, who is representing AOPA, but the work that the TWG has been doing has been pretty intense. And those of you who know about the technical working groups, you can go onto the CASA website and certainly look at those technical working group reports that are there for everyone to see, and it's all pretty transparent. So that's probably all I've got to say about that.
Thanks, Forrest.
What else?
we might go to Brewing 85. Moretti, if you're quick enough on that one, apologies for a curly question. With Cessna 152s being potentially registrable as VH or RAAus, will there be any crossover where a PPL can fly a 152 registered RAAus without an RAAus membership? No, Brewy, it's a very simple world from that perspective. It's if you want to operate in the RAAus world, you have to comply with the RAAus requirements, because that's what's in the legislation. So you need membership, you need an RPC, you need a BFR, which you can have done in CASA, we will recognise. If you want to fly in the VH world, you need to comply with the CASA requirements. So if it's got numbers on it, come to the RAAus world. If it's got letters, go to the CASA world. That situation exists right now. You can register a Technam, a Jabiru, Icarus Wombat with registration from RAAus or with registration from CASA. So that situation is in existence now. So, just stick with the rules that the aircraft is registered to, and you won't go wrong.
Yeah, and look, it's a quagmire, the regulations in terms of navigating it. It is a challenge, and I suppose that's the beauty of RAAus, is we try and simplify that through our ops and tech manual for our members. At the end of the day, many of our members, I'd say most of our members, are doing this for fun, and no one wants to sit there and read regulation for fun, which is a huge benefit of being with RAAus, because we try and spell it out pretty clearly. If you've gone and got your RPC, there's not a great deal more you need to do before you fly, other than your normal pre-flight and have a copy of the VFRG there in your charts, and you're pretty much good to go. So it's about, and I think that really important is that we have a limited remit of what we operate under. We're operating day VFR, and we don't operate multi-engine. There's a whole bunch of things that we're not allowed to do. And absolutely, that's why we're able to have a simple rule set. It's not about segmenting the market. It's about making it easy for our members to participate in aviation. Any other questions?
Here's a shout out to my former CEO, Icarus Wombat, still going great. That's terrific, Michael. Thanks for watching. There was Love it. There was a question back there from Stephen Limkin too about some information about a change log document detailing differences for Group G for instructors. Stephen, we are going to be producing a bucket load of educational material, wraps. We're going to do live streams. We're going to be doing all sorts of stuff to try and make this process as simple as possible. So yeah, there's going to be a whole heap of education material for instructors, maintainers, aircraft owners, you name it. We're going to try and make life as easy as possible, where possible.
Yeah. And I think the point there is that, that's what we're all about, just trying to make it easy. And a lot of this work that we'll do, it's a bit of chicken and egg, how much of it do we do before we submit the application to CASA? Because whilst we'll have a certain degree of confidence in what we apply for when we give them that application, ultimately, until we get the tick of approval from CASA, we can't have certainty around those types of things. So once we understand that we've hopefully got that approval, that all that material will be generated. But of course, we're sort of doing it as we go, and but the final bits will be put together just before we go live for our members there.
There's a question there from Grant Kingston about what about dual registration. Oh, I don't think we can go anywhere near that, Grant. You can't have letters and numbers on a plane. It would just cause any number of issues. So I think you're going to have to pick a system, pick whatever suits you, and operate in that world. Go from there. George has got a question, George Seppold, about medical requirement to fly Group G. That's a good question, George. Thanks for bringing that up. We don't anticipate any changes to the existing system because it's just another aircraft pilot certificate. So at the moment, there's no changes to Group A, B or D in existence. So Group G should be much the same for pilot certificate holders and instructors, etc.
Yeah, I think an important one though. Yeah, and another one on that is around the controlled airspace, the medical requirements for controlled airspace. We actually haven't had that conversation with CASA, other than the fact that the position certainly that I take here is that we operate safely in CTAFs today. If you take Ballina as an example, with self-declared medicals, we operate safely in and around jet movements at an uncontrolled aerodrome. For mine, if we're operating in a controlled aerodrome, with the additional control of an air traffic controller telling us, if there's an incapacitation event, that they can, one of those aircraft, move that aircraft away so that it doesn't get into conflict. I think that's a far safer outcome again, and therefore I don't actually see the need for a medical for our pilots in that space. But again, as we know, there's lots of work going on in that medical space at the moment. There'll also be a lot of work, no doubt, on around controlled airspace, and so what will be, we just don't know. One there from Kyle for you, Jared.
Yeah, so at this point in time, at the time of implementation for a manufactured aircraft, the aircraft will have to be maintained by a Part 66 license holder. And if the aircraft is experimental, if the aircraft has been built by the owner, then they'll be able to maintain it if they have completed what is currently the MPC that's run by the FAAA. However, with Part 43, one of the changes there is that when you build the aircraft, the authorized person issuing the C of A will be able to issue the maintenance authority for that aircraft. As I previously mentioned, with the drafting of the Part 103 MOS, will be the opportunity to look to improve the maintenance privileges for Group G aircraft owners. Previously, there's also another question from Pepe regarding weighing for Amina-built aircraft. We've also done a significant amount of work in that space, and the intention would be to submit an application at the same time as the Group G application on our 149 certificate to enable Amina builders to weigh their aircraft. So yes to that question.
And with our weighing program, Jared, that's another thing we'll be putting through to CASA very shortly as well. Our program to to
Yeah.
revise
on
the
the
whole
same
process.
on the same application. Yeah.
Yep. For our weight and balance, weight control authorities. Sorry. All right. There's one there from Jean. What would be the expectation that Class G will be active if approved by CASA? I'm assuming you're talking about Group G there, Jean. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think maybe you're talking about the timing there. But essentially, we'll make that submission hopefully by the end of this month or early next month. I expect it to take a few months for CASA to work through that. It's not a small piece of work for CASA to review. It's akin to almost an AOC if you look at it in that regards, or an airline adding a new aircraft type to their fleet, even though we're talking about a 760 kilo aircraft. But look, I'd be absolutely hopeful that in a 3-month period, we'll certainly have a very good understanding of if and when that's going to be approved, if it hasn't been approved already within that 3-month period. And again, we've had discussions with CASA about that, as any AOC holder would. So, that means that we'll be certainly issuing RPCs for Group G by the end of this year. And that'll be a huge, huge success. Why 760 so Grant Kingston there. I'm going to ask Jill or Jared to answer this because you've been here longer than I have.
Yeah, I think there was the attempt to align it with a known standard. So CSVLA had a maximum takeoff weight of 750 kgs, and then it was raised by another 10 to 760 because the 150-152 fleet was pretty much split between it, because some 150s have a MTO of 757 kgs. So in order just to be able to include that fleet, it was raised to 760.
There's always going to be a line in the sand.
I was going to say, instructing a DH82, but you've got to sort of start with a point, and who knows where that will end up. We've got to hit our straps with the 760 to start with. And that includes a pretty big variety of aircraft, even all the way to Victor Air Tourers and RAAus experimental aircraft, vans and RAAus. So, we've got to start somewhere. Maybe the old Tiger Moth one day could be in the RAAus world. That'd be cool.
Very good. Well, I think we're pretty much on time there, so we might call it a night and let those of us who are interested in the watching the Blues beat Queensland tonight go and do so. But I'd like to thank everyone for taking part tonight and for your questions. We will obviously be communicating lots on Group G and version 8 of the Flight Operations Manual as time goes on. But thanks to Jill and Jared for joining me tonight, and of course, Moret. I can see the former CEO Michael Linky there. Go the Blues! I couldn't agree with you more there, Michael. But thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you.